What is this gray area around copyrighted music?
Their whole business is to own these rights and secure money for the usage of the rights.
Who's liable in that situation?
If you have not secured the publishing rights, whoever owns the publishing will absolutely come after you.
Do you think that with the speed at which things are changing, that the rules around it are going to change? Today we're talking about the gray area of copyright music. If you are in marketing, if you're a company or a brand that's about to make a film, you're probably going to have a music bed, a track. You want to do something creative with music. You're on social media. You're using music in all of these different pieces of content. You are in some gray area and you could get sued if you don't handle this correctly. I'm here with Jonathan Sachs from Astral Media Group. I purposely wanted to scare everybody so that they wanted to watch the rest of this.
Right.
No one wants to be sued. Jonathan, first, talk a little bit about Astral Media Group, what you guys do, and then what is this gray area around copyrighted music?
Sure. So Astral Media Group is a company that I formed last year. At its core, it's a boutique business and legal affairs company that essentially we specialize in working with production companies, media companies, talent creators, really you name it, in a way that's a bit refreshing and different than engaging a traditional law firm, right? A lot of companies, especially larger companies, have, a full in-house team of lawyers, and they sit across both business and legal. And we wanted to basically give that experience to all levels of companies and individuals. And really that's what we've done is we've been able to carve this niche business out and have something different. It's the experience of having an in-house lawyer that's both like a business executive and a really senior executive style business lawyer. And what's different is we don't charge like a law firm, right? Like that's one of our big things is, in my experience working with outside counsel and lawyers of all walks of life is that, the moment you pick up the phone, the bills start coming. And the moment you have a conversation, the moment you spit ideas back and forth, it's not something you can really do with a law firm unless you're expecting to pay a massive bill.
Right.
And I wanted it to feel much more comfortable, much more transparent, and to provide that alternative, which is just, very clear, very transparent relationships and flat payments, flat fees, and just an opportunity to have the experience of an in-house lawyer.
All right, awesome. Now, before anybody leaves, because they're like, oh no, it's a lawyer and I'm going to hear another legal podcast, talk about why does this matter to brands? Now, you work with a lot of companies like ours, agencies, et cetera. But if I'm the head of marketing at a brand and we're about to engage with a company to make a video, hopefully ours, by the way, and why do I need to know, or why should I care about this gray area around copyrighted music and what's going on right now with social media and all that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is you don't want to get fined. Music is a very litigious category of intellectual property. There's a number of associated rights that are required to be able to use, especially commercial music in content, especially content that's made for profit. And it's very varied in where the rights are held, who's holding them, what the associated rates are to secure them. Making content is very different when you're an individual versus when you're a company, right? When you're an individual, you can just, open your phone, open TikTok, shoot a video, choose a sound, and that's the end of it. And, the number of people doing that globally is so voluminous that it's impossible for, the music rights holders to try to track down everyone and try to enforce anything on them, right? So it's really the companies that they're after and the companies that they're focused on. And that's really why companies making content for profit, whether it's really editorial or commercial content, it's essential to make sure you have rights secured for the music you're using and the right rights, because that's a big issue. Right off the bat, I will say it's probably important as a lawyer to have a bit of a disclaimer. Like I don't think anyone should take what I'm saying as personal legal advice for themselves. Everyone who's in this business should always consult an attorney themselves. But it's just good general knowledge that should be out there, and
this is
more
like
people
Wayne's
should
World.
know.
Well, this is like Wayne's World. You're going to see the disclaimer on the bottom of the screen right now, and so it's just like, we're just not going to do the big zoom out, zoom in, zoom out effect.
Exactly.
So this isn't legal advice, but this is a good conversation around the understanding that people should have. So,
Sure.
Okay, so if I'm an individual, I'm doing this because now. Well, let me ask you that for a second. So these individuals you claim. a lot of them are influencers, right? Which is an actual business that they are running.
Right.
So, right. So like Mr. Beast is not an individual.
No, he's not.
And a lot of these folks that you're following that might be, they've got the, whatever, fit check and whatever.
Sure.
They're using these tracks. So I guess let's start going categorically through. And I imagine what the answer is, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, is that as you get deeper into the type of brand you are, the size of the business you are, and the reach that you have, the more exposure you have. If you are just some guy who's starting out with 3 videos on your TikTok and you're probably not going to get in trouble. If you are a Fortune 500 company and you do a parody video using an original track, someone might come after you. But give me the gradations, because I think what I want people in watching this to understand is, what are the questions they should be asking the video production company that they're working with or their in-house team if they're leveraging content like this and potentially putting them at risk? What questions should they be asking? And what are the steps they can take to take advantage of the social media, organic content that you could create and build a brand or build a following for your brand without putting yourself in heavy risk?
Yeah, I mean, so right off the bat, I would say that even though I'm a lawyer and that's kind of my background, I'm much more business forward than I think most lawyers are, and that's kind of what I bring to my business. And with that, I tend to be a little bit more liberal in how I interpret all of this. There's certain areas that I think you can push a little bit more, be a little bit more aggressive, take a little bit more risk. Obviously, there's risk no matter what when you're using, protected music, commercial music, but the majority of people in my seat will take a much more conservative approach. And that's kind of underlying all of the thinking behind this from a lawyer is how conservative versus how liberal do I want to be in like my risk assessment of what can and cannot be used. With individuals and at different levels, again, there's really no rhyme or reason, because the reality is that, I don't have a TikTok, but I could go online, I could create a TikTok, I could use a massive commercial song, and I could get a call from the rights holder the next day saying, take it down or pay us a fee.
Okay.
But is it really worth that? Is it really worth it for them to spend the time to do that? That's the biggest question. And is it, who has the deepest pockets, and who has the pockets to be able to afford the associated fees to license music?
Well, let me pause you there for a second, because there's, obviously with everything in law, it's damage, right? And
Sure.
like, what's the quantifiable damage? So in that environment, I think this is important for people to understand. Is that always the first step? Meaning you're a brand, maybe you got 10 employees, 3 million in revenue. You're not a huge company.
Sure.
You're not a little baby either. And you put out this piece of content and you get a call the next day. Is the call, and I assume there's no such thing as always, sometimes, never, but is the call always, hey, you have 24 hours to take this down? Is it sometimes, hey, we're sending you a bill for, X thousands of dollars? Because if you take the counter, like, somebody slipping in a parking lot, right?
Sure.
There's damages.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get a call that's like, hey, fix the ice or else. It's like, hey, here's a bill, right?
Right.
So how does it work with music? Because, how's the damage quantifiable? And for brands that are making decisions on what kind of risk they want to take, is that worth the risk? Because if you're just going to say, hey, you spent a little bit of time in this content, you posted, and you're going to lose the likes and views and comments, like, not as bad as losing money, probably.
Right.
So I know I'm putting your feet to the fire here with these questions, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would say right off the bat that the majority of music rights holders want to be in business with people who are in the entertainment business.
Okay.
And so when someone uses music without securing the rights beforehand, the first thing that they will do is, hey, and when they make those calls, they'll say, hey, we see you're using our music. You don't have the rights for it. You have 2 options. You can either pay for the license, and here's a copy of a license, fill it out, send us the fee, everything's good. And now you have a license to use the music, and we're all good. Or if you don't pay for the license, you'll have to pay pay a fine, essentially, for that usage, and you'll have to take the content down. And usually in that scenario, the fine is either the same amount as the license fee, which they might as well do the license,
Sure.
or is even more. It could be 2x, 3x what the license is.
I feel like from like a negotiation perspective, if I'm getting the benefit of buying the license and being able to use the content, I would want to incentivize people, like almost disincentivize people to do that, because I don't want the content being used. So I would have the fee be lower. But is it almost that they do kind of want the content out there, they just want it paid for?
So I wouldn't necessarily say they want the content out there, but they want licenses in place.
Okay.
They would much rather be charging people for a license than be chasing people for with
Got it.
fines.
Okay.
So that's what how they want people to be properly papered and processed, basically. And so that's really the name of the game, is they want everyone under contract and under licenses to use the music properly. The big thing is, though, is I mean, we should probably talk a little bit about all of the associated rights that underlie music.
Get your notepad up.
Right. So there's essentially 3 categories of music rights. There's performance rights, and then there's synchronization rights, which include the rights to the master, which is the original recording of the song, and the rights to the lyrics, which is the publishing rights.
Okay.
So for music to be essentially out in the world on video, you require all 3 of these rights. You require the performance rights, the master rights, and the publishing rights. Now, if you're just shooting a video and you have music in the background, like commercial music, in that scenario, the 2 most important rights are the master rights and the publishing rights, because you're not performing the song.
Now, let me just clarify there, because there's 2 environments where we as video producers and videographers, cinematographers run into this. One is I take that track, I download it from somewhere, from a licensing site, or, rip it from YouTube, whatever, and I put it in your video as a music bed. There's another environment where you are giving your first TED Talk ever on music rights.
Right.
And I film an interview with you outside of the hall, and somebody's playing a song on the red carpet, and that is in the background. So is it the same licensing applied to both of those scenarios, or are they different? Are they unique, or am I completely on the wrong
Same licensing in theory. If you're hearing music being played in the background, the first question is it recorded music or is it live music? If it's live music and they're not using the backtracking, meaning they're not using the original recording, you don't necessarily need the master rights secured.
So if like a band is just in the background playing. Okay.
So in that scenario, you wouldn't necessarily need the master rights, but you would absolutely need the publishing if there's lyrics associated with the music. Publishing is always tricky because, again, depending on the song and who the songwriters are, there could be 8 rights holders. There could be 12 rights holders. The biggest examples are rap music. In rap music, some songs have 15 rights holders because there's so many writing credits. And the common mistake most people and most companies make when securing music rights is they think, this person wrote the song, I'm good. But just because they wrote the song doesn't mean they have the rights to it. Even for big companies who have massive relationships with big stars, just because Lady Gaga, let's say we're doing a project with Lady Gaga, just because Lady Gaga says, oh yeah, you can use my song, no problem, absolutely not. You will absolutely, if you take that and go use the song, you will absolutely get a call from the rights holders, either again requesting you to get a license in place or pay a fine.
Wow.
Because these artists, save for a very few, like a Taylor Swift who buys her whole catalog, but the majority of artists don't own their music at all. They don't own the master for sure. Those are owned by a Sony, a Universal, a Warner Music, and even the writing credits. They might own a piece of the writing credits and are entitled to a fee, but the approval rights needed to be able to use the lyrics essentially need to be secured from one of the big publishing companies.
So this is what people are talking about a lot when they kind of complain about artists having their content essentially bought out, stolen, sold, whatever.
Right.
This is the complaint that they make, that they don't actually own their own music.
Right.
Yeah.
The area where it gets a little trickier in terms of what rights do I exactly need is like live performances, right? If live performances are not using the master, not using the original recording, and you're just hearing the music live, then you don't necessarily need the master cleared. You only need the lyrics cleared.
Okay.
With that said, I have had a few experiences in my professional life where I've worked with some massive artists, and we had them essentially performing live at an event, and we're told that even though they're not using backtracking and they're not using the original recording of the song, we have a contract in place with that artist that basically says anytime that they sing what the product of that performance is, the master, essentially the recording that is being created, we already own it, even though it's not created yet.
Wow.
So you have to pay us in advance for the song that will be recorded, even though it doesn't exist yet.
Wow. Okay.
So there's a lot of
Have you ever had that where the artist like goes on the stage and they're just like, I'm gonna sing Twinkle Twinkle because it's licensed, that it's it's open license and I can't sing any of my own songs tonight.
So yes. So I've had a number of experiences with artists where either when we put them under contract, we very explicitly say, here are the 3 songs that you will sing. You will not sing anything else. And if you do, it is your responsibility
To pay for whatever.
to pay for any clearances, any fines, anything. If it's a scenario where an artist, the rights might be a little bit tricky and we cannot secure the rights for the music, we might look for alternatives for them to sing.
Okay.
Again, certain songs might be a little trickier depending on who the rights holders are. But it's something that always needs to be weighed out. And again, when you talk about editorial versus commercial content, the cost to secure music rights for commercial content, anything featuring brands, anything pushing product in any way, is exponentially more expensive. So you want to be want to be so much more careful there. Like where the recording with the master rights of a song might be $6,000 to secure the rights for an editorial usage, that same song might be $50,000 because it's a commercial usage.
Because it's commercial usage. So let's reel it back in on thinking about. I think a lot of the people that would be watching this video are going to be either folks in the video production business or folks that work with video production companies. And what they're really going to want to know is like, what content, what should I look out for if I'm working with a video production company? So for example, and I'll just throw this in as a little nod to us, we will source licensed tracks from libraries that we subscribe to and pay for that are specifically for video production teams versus solo videographers and are for use in commercials, broadcasts, et cetera, that have these, the license. And a lot of times we'll have our clients that will post the video on YouTube or whatever,
Right.
and it'll get flagged, hey, you can't monetize this video because you don't have the license, right? And we just shoot them an email and then they upload that
Right.
that graphic or that licensing document. It gets approved and cleared by YouTube. So I think for their purposes, taking back to the example of I've got a music bed that I've actively grabbed from somewhere and edited into the video versus I'm at an event, I'm interviewing you, and I can hear in the background some song being played, right? So you're saying that if it's a live band, it might be okay because depending on the lyrics, like you might need the lyrics cleared. But if it's a live band and let's say they're doing an instrumental of Backstreet Boys, I Want It That Way, and you can't hear any lyrics and them playing it, you might be okay. What about if it's a DJ playing it from their DJ system? Sorry, their DJing place. What's going on then? That's essentially playing the original song?
Yeah, if they're playing the original song and it's in your content, it needs to be cleared.
Okay.
Depending on
if they're mixing it a little bit, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
The thing that I always ask companies that I work with, like right off the bat, when they say we want to make a piece of content, we want music, what do we need to know? The first question is always, what's your budget? Because depending on the budget, we can figure out exactly what kind of music we can look at and what to use. Low budget, low cost videos, the music libraries are always a great option.
Yeah.
The biggest thing to remember though is that the music libraries give you the rights for the master and the publishing. They don't always give you the performance rights. So you always have to look in the fine print to make sure that they do. Less so for production companies, more for the companies actually distributing the content.
So meaning I make a video and, I've got it on YouTube, LinkedIn, we're all good. And then I want to play it in a baseball stadium. That's where that's becoming performance. Like where would when does a video get performed?
The moment the video gets distributed on any platform.
Oh,
that's technically the performance of that music.
Okay.
So in that scenario, depending on the music library, you might have a situation where they don't have blanket performance rights cleared.
Okay.
And in that scenario, the performance rights holders are ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, those companies.
Mm-hmm.
And their whole job is to ensure that everyone has these rights in place. It's their whole business. It's how they make all of their money. So they have literal teams sitting there just scouring content to look for improper usages.
Got it.
And if they hear music being used in content, they'll shoot out cold messages to companies and be like, "Hey, we see you're using this. Do you have a PRO license in place?" They might not even know, and they might just send it to you. And if it's a scenario where it's a music library that does actually secure those on behalf of the ultimate end user, great. If not, it's the end user's responsibility to make sure they have some sort of PRO license in place for the usage of that music out in the world.
So it's an important thing to ask the video production company you work with, even if they are on one of the subscriptions. Now, I know
Yeah.
one of the subscribers we work with, or the libraries, is artlist.io.
Mhm.
And one of the things that they pitched us on when we were buying is that if you use a song and we're telling you that you can use it and something comes back, and I'm like, well, how could that happen? And it's exactly what you just described. Like, we thought we had the performance rights or we didn't, and now you've used that song and you've used it in good faith. They have insurance policies that come along with your subscription. I was like, this is crazy. Why don't you
Right.
just properly vet everything so that you
Right.
don't have to have this insurance? But again, I think it's what we talked about off camera, that the technology and the music and the quantity and the volume is just so fast and so large that like you can't do it. So what they do is instead they have some insurance policies in place where if this comes through and if they're like, hey, we need additional money for this licensing, boom, you're just covered by that insurance.
Exactly. I mean, the unfortunate reality in the music industry is that you're guilty until proven innocent.
Right.
Really is, if you go out and create content with music in it, they're gonna think you've used it improperly before doing any work. They're gonna reach out. They're gonna say, hey, like, do you have the rights to this? They're gonna question everything. They're not going to assume you have the rights. And whether it's individuals working on the master side, or whether it's individuals working on the publicist side or the PRO side, all of these companies and entities have people in place essentially just to scour the internet, scour everywhere the music is being used, and look for improper usages and get money. And it's just a part of the business. And so, making sure you're buttoned up in this area is critical, because it's also one of the easiest areas to get dinged, and ultimately incur fees, fines, what it may be, whatever it may be.
Sure.
And again, the rights are so varied, depending on what the music is, who made it, who owns the rights to it. There's so many. There's especially on the publishing side. People think that like an artist writes a song, they own it, but catalogs get sold. They're acquired from different people. There are some companies that are essentially just family-owned companies that just own a catalog of music rights associated with the publishing, which is the lyrics. And that's their business. They just own a giant catalog, and if anyone ever wants to use the music, they have to get paid for it.
Right.
And again, in a lot of my experience, when we're working in a situation where it may be with the artist who actually performed the song, their lyrics might not be owned by them, and it might be, and again, you might be told, oh, like the artist says it's fine to use, like we're fine. They wrote the song, but it's like says no, and they don't own the rights. They don't own the rights. We have to go secure the rights elsewhere. If we go use it, some of these mom and pop shops who might own the lyrics to a song,
Sure,
they don't care that it's the artist. Their whole business is to own these rights and secure money for the usage of the rights.
So in your Lady Gaga example, Lady Gaga is working with some, I'm making this up right now, and we've actually had these conversations where nonprofits have asked like, hey, can we just use this, really popular track? And I always have the same thing. Here are the risks. Here's the issues. We can't do that. Like, I can't source that for you because I'm going to be held liable for it. And I actually want to ask you that, like, I don't know what the term would be, but that sort of liability tier of like who's liable and at what level. So I want to talk about that in a second. But well, we're just a nonprofit. Like, who's going to come after us, right?
Right.
Who's going to come after you with these brands that this is the only way that they make money for?
Right. This is their business. Right? The reality is that if you're a nonprofit creating content, you can absolutely negotiate lower rates. Again, everything's a negotiation. Someone might give you low rates. Someone might give you gratis. You never know. You can make the pitch.
But you need to make sure whoever's doing that with you is the person that actually
are the proper rights holders.
So like, let's go back to that Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga goes, she does this event for this nonprofit. She can absolutely use XYZ song. She may not own the rights to it. She told you could use it. You use it in good faith. You got maybe even like a little napkin where the Lady Gaga signed it. Who's liable in that situation? Like, do you go, look, Lady Gaga said I could use it, and then because you had already given the example, sometimes the artists are actually liable. Do they go after Lady Gaga and she's like, I tried to do a nice thing. Go pay the publisher? Or like, what does that
Yeah.
really
No, yeah. So they would never, in that scenario, they would never go after the artist.
Okay.
They will always go after whoever is distributing and using the content. The issue, I mean, I wouldn't say the issue, but what can happen and occasionally happens depending on who the artist is and who the label is who owns the master rights, is if the artist says, yeah, you can use it, you know, on its face, like that doesn't give you anything, but they could make a call to the master, to their record label and say, hey, I'm doing this nonprofit. I want this song to be able to be used. Like, I need you to do me a solid and like give it to them gratis.
Okay.
The company, whether it's like a Sony, a Warner, or a Universal, they might do it. They might say, okay, like the artist said, like we're gonna
We
do
have
it
a
for
good
you.
relationship.
We'll give it to
Let's
you.
do it. Right.
That covers the master. Certainly doesn't cover the publishing. And again, depending on the whoever is holding the publishing, they might agree because they see on the master side that it was given gratis, or they might just hold their guns depending on who the rights holder is and say, this is our business. This is how we make money. This is the fee. Usually in music,
let's just break that
Yeah.
down in like really plain terms for people. So Lady Gaga goes, I'm sorry, Lady Gaga, wherever you are, by the way, you're very generous, but also very not, you're not doing the right thing.
yeah, it's not
Why
nice.
you doing, why
It's
you
not
doing-
nice.
Why are you doing this? This feels like a great trick, by the way. It's like
Right.
an Ocean's 11 of like, sure, you can use my song.
Right.
And then you walk out the door and just like grenade explode.
Right.
The whole building
Right,
blows up behind you. So, okay. So Lady Gaga goes to this magical nonprofit. You can use my song. Sony goes, no problem. You've got mastering rights, rights to the master, but you don't have publishing. So it's still useless. Like at this point, all we've given you the rights to is like make the video. You can't show it to anybody. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, what will likely happen in that scenario is, let's say, again, I think Lady Gaga might be Universal Music, but again, this is all hypotheticals. In that scenario, she says you can use it. She makes a call to her label and says, like, I want it used as a nonprofit. Like, give it to them either like super discounted or gratis. The master side approves at whatever rate or gratis it may be. If you have not secured the publishing rights, whoever owns the publishing will absolutely come after you. They said no one came to us.
So at what moment? Meaning, okay, I have these licenses. I think I'm good. The video company makes the video. It's this cool, it's Lady Gaga with, let's come up with a cool nonprofit, like maybe something about puppies. So
Sure.
Lady Gaga, she's like petting a puppy.
Right.
And they're like, puppies are great.
Right.
And this is
Save the puppies.
Save the puppies. The nonprofit, Save the Puppies. And we've assembled the video. We're ready to go. Everybody approves it. No problem yet. And then it goes up on LinkedIn. Like, look at Lady Gaga saving puppies. Boom, publisher comes in. Is that,
No.
When does it happen? And
So
what's
that's why it's
What's the
really
problem?
Excuse my language. That's really why it's a crapshoot.
I
Because
thought you were going to say something weird.
no, it's not that bad.
The crap is good on this channel.
Totally
I
fine.
just want you to know, we
Um,
love crap.
it's great. The problem is you have no idea. You might get a call a day later. You might get a call a year later. You might get a call 5 years later. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just whenever the company who owns the rights finds the usage, takes this issue with the usage,
Yeah.
and reaches out. That's where all of this risk comes in, because some people are like, let's just take the risk. Like, maybe they'll never give us a call. Like, and sometimes they won't. Whereas others, like, you'll get a call really quick. Again, there's no rhyme or
Right.
reason. It's just whenever it's found and someone decides to make an issue of it.
If it's at a later date,
Yeah.
I imagine you could argue. So which damages are you looking at? Are you looking at the damages from the benefits perspective, like the ROI of the business that leveraged the content? Or are you looking at it from a damage perspective, like, we charged this other brand $80,000 for the publishing rights, and we could have easily charged you that, pay up? Like, what are they basing it on?
Yeah, no.
I know you said everything's a negotiation.
Yeah,
but-
it's never based off of like the company's individual situation. It's always based off of what we charge for our music and what you have done with the music that you were supposed to get licensed properly.
Wow.
And based on that, again, like, it's one of the more difficult situations is if it's a situation where a song goes live on a piece of content and has lived for a number of years, they're not coming after you to get you under a current license. They're going to come after you retroactively for
Right.
all of the years it's been used to date, and then on a license moving forward. The other big issue with music too is that almost never can you ever get a song cleared in perpetuity, meaning forever.
That was what I was about to ask you. Yeah.
So when you secure music rights, you're securing them for a specific territory, whether it's global, you can use it globally, or maybe it's just restricted to the U.S., wherever it may be, and for a specific time frame.
Wow.
Music is very expensive to clear, especially big music. big commercial, like, the biggest
The
songs in the
biggest
world.
songs, right?
And a 1-year license can be incredibly expensive. A 2-year incredibly expensive. Again, if it's a branded campaign, you're going to secure the music for the duration of the campaign usually, and that's it.
Yeah.
If it's editorial content, obviously you want it to live as long as possible online for most people to see. But the reality is there's going to be an end date for the usage of the content, or at least to pull the music out of the content and
Right.
replace it with maybe
With
something
something
else.
else. Wow. I know that from, working with actors and hiring actors for clients that we run into that all the time where, and we've never done this as a brand. So our approach as a video production company has been, we're mercenaries. You're bringing us in to do your brand film, your commercial, et cetera. If I'm shooting something for you, the raw footage is yours. The exports are yours. You can use that in perpetuity from my perspective. But the music inputs that I don't have control over, right, or only have certain control over, that's something that we need to talk about. If we hire actors for your video, they may have different terms. And it's differentiated us a little bit from the way things were done in the past. And some of the, I think a lot of clients just really struggle with that. It's like, why? I mean, a lot of people don't realize even with your wedding, right, that
Sure.
if you get your wedding filmed and photographed, that the photographer owns the content.
Yep.
They're licensing it to you. So they could theoretically go, you have a 5-year license to your wedding photos, and then
Yeah.
you have to take them down from online and you can't use them anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting because photography is a very unique area, different from video, because in photography, like, whoever takes the photo owns the photo, whereas video, that's not the case
Yeah.
with rights. And music is kind of similar in that way, is that, the music rights holders own their music up front and forever. And so, understanding what those rights are is key. And yeah, like photography, right? Like, right. Photographers own everything they shoot. It doesn't matter who it's for or what it is. You work with some of the biggest brands. If you're doing a commercial or you're doing like a photo shoot, for a massive brand, the photographer owns those photos and you have to pay for the right to use
Right,
them, which
right.
is very different than video. When you shoot video, it's whoever's paying to make the video owns the video.
Right, right. And I guess it protects the photographer. I think one of the things that, for us, we really leaned into in that was like, we want to always provide value. So the thing that I would say is that I'm not going to sit here and hold your assets hostage. Like, if you want to work with us again, you'll work with us again.
Sure.
If you don't, okay, that's great.
Right.
And I feel like you're noticing, I'm seeing a lot of photographers that are coming up that are just giving the licensing rights away because somebody else will. And it's kind of become this like Wild West that way.
Right.
And I've had a lot of discussions with, friends of mine that are photographers that are like, no, we got to do it the old way. And they'll lose some of that business where someone goes,
Right.
oh, you're shooting my networking event. I want full rights to the photos. Like, you have to sell that, release that inclusive. What are your thoughts around that in terms of how things are changing? Do you feel like, and we kind of talked about this off camera, so I'm kind of teeing you up here, but we can think about music, but thinking about video, photo, music, this whole area, do you think that with the speed at which things are changing, that the rules around it are going to change, or do you think it's just going to continue to be this Wild West?
Right. It's actually funny because on the photo side, with my background and where I've actually sat on the opposite side of the table for the majority of my career, and I've actually had to engage in the opposite problem, which is where I've had to retain photographers for video projects. And in that scenario, the photographers don't understand video rights, and they're expecting the same rights that they've gotten for
In the
photography.
past, right.
So when they're shooting video, again, these are very kind of like bespoke, high-end creative culture moments.
Yeah.
They're expecting to own the video they're shooting. And I would have to explain, like, this is not for photography. Like, we own the video. We're paying the
Why is
video.
that different? Why do you know, like, the reasoning behind the law?
No, I mean, I don't know the reasoning, and I don't even think it's law. I think it's just it's actually not law. It's really just precedent that's been set for years and years
Okay.
and years, and it's just always been the case that photographers, the moment they take those photos, expect to own them. Again, like, a video is so different, right? If you're paying for the thing, you own the thing.
Right.
And in photography, it probably should, that should follow as well, but it's always been treated a bit differently. And then with rights, I think we were moving into a time where the understanding of rights and IP is paramount to anything even more than just like a one-off paycheck.
Yeah.
People want to retain rights. People want to have libraries of IP available and like associated with them. And so everyone is much more inclined to preserve as much as possible related to intellectual property and the rights associated, because there's inherent value there. Creating a library of content and rights is value that's tangible and can be sold to someone else or can be leveraged in some way. Whether or not you're an individual who makes content or a company that creates content, IP libraries are everything right now. And there are new companies all over looking for who have distribution capabilities and need intellectual property and need IP, need assets. I mean, the biggest area right now are our fast channels and like the OTT space.
Mm-hmm.
They have these platforms like a Samsung TV or a Roku. They have essentially their version of cable networks that are just channels of content, but they need more content. And so they're basically just looking for partners who are just essentially like companies that have libraries of IP that can just be converted to
And just hand it over to them
channels
and just pay for it.
right? Because they want more content in their space, and they're not content creators, so they're looking for meaningful content creators to basically come to their platform and distribute there.
Well, let's hit one more topic. You can't have a conversation about anything anymore without the two letters AI. And I
Sure.
don't know if the dot matters, but right. So I think that obviously that is even further making things complicated, right? Because technically AI is sourcing from content that already exists on the internet. It's recreating new content. You have the whole, I can have a country version song of I Want It That Way. I've done 2 Backstreet Boys references today, but we mostly talked about Lady Gaga. So I'll leave it to that. Any other music references, I'll pick a different band. You could have a country music version of that that's just AI robotic generated. Who owns that? Who's responsible for that? If you posted and you created it, are you in trouble? Do you have IP license to that because you're the one who created it? All those different pieces. And then I would say as a global concept is just to your point that, hey, everybody needs content. Content is easier, faster to make right now. Like, I mean, we're sitting in this podcast studio because my whole conversation with you was I built this studio because I was like, there are so many smart people out there that are not online enough with content and they don't know how to get the content up there, the time it takes to produce the content. And it's like, well, if you just sat down and just shared your personality and your brain for an hour, that could be chopped up and not the brain, the content and put out for people to consume. So I would say those 2 areas. How is AI complicating the legal landscape and should businesses be leveraging that hard because it's actually like we can get away with things, or no, you have no idea what you're opening yourself up to? And then number 2, kind of a global question that's more like macroeconomics, I guess, but just like as content is so much easier and faster to create with these new tools, that kind of depresses the price of the value of IP, right? Because like it's okay, fine, I can't get your version of the song. I'll just make a new version that kind of is close enough and gets what I need done, and it'll make it in 24 hours. So, okay, those 2 things. Robert Frost, The Road Less Traveled. You pick the one you want.
Yeah, I mean, I would say AI in the media space. It's a really interesting point. I mean, AI is obviously like the ultimate buzzword, buzz letters being used across every industry at the moment. In media, especially media companies, they're all looking to leverage AI for internal learning tools, for their own content, for leveraging it for additional content. A big media, especially in the media space, media and entertainment, the companies in that space now, when they're engaging artists, whether it's musicians, whether it's actors, actresses, really content creators, whoever it may be, social media influencers, they are starting to embed into their agreements and into the relationships that when we're shooting a video with you, that we can use what we get from that content for AI learning, and they'll embed into agreements now language specifically tailored to that, saying, if they're shooting a piece of content, that we can use your voice to leverage it for an audio, piece of audio, or for internal business purposes to maybe it's for when like new employees are hired, the voice you hear on like the content that are shown to new employees, they might leverage like a celebrity's voice for that usage. So companies are trying to leverage AI from talent and celebrities, from their name and image and likeness, to use for their own benefit. The biggest agencies that represent these talent have already caught on to this, and right off the bat will like stipulate you cannot use anything that you're getting from my client for anything AI. They don't even like say specifically, just like I don't want anything AI in my client's contract, like remove it all. So I would say it's a mix of companies and platforms and spaces and individuals who really understand what they want to do with AI and are trying to do it. And on the other side, there's a lot of individuals and other clients and talent, celebrities, whatever it may be, that really don't. I would say really aren't comfortable with the landscape yet, and aren't really fully knowledgeable on it. And there again, it is such a gray area
Right.
that rather than try to kind of like dip their toe or allow anything, it's just a no. It's just no. Like
Okay.
just keep me out of it altogether.
Right. Right.
Because I don't know what it could be. I don't know what it could look like. I don't know. I
I
don't
mean, at
know.
the end of the day, what you're referring to is, and I had a conversation with somebody about this recently, but just that I could take, Matt McConaughey could do a quick commercial. I think he actually, the person was telling me that he did sell his voice in this way to AI that it could be repurposed.
Right.
But I could do a quick commercial. Let's take somebody who's not as famous, somebody who's a new actor. You do one job, you've accidentally licensed your voice to AI, and now they never have to hire you again because they can just, let's say it's a learning management, a training video series, right? They could just loop you and just have you say
Yep.
all the rest of the words
It's
forever.
So for the majority of my career, I've sat on the other side of the table negotiating with celebrity talent. And ironically, most people would never think this. It's never the biggest celebrities that are the most litigious in negotiating for appearances, for the usage of their name, image, and likeness. It's always the celebrity, or the B, C list celebrities that are up and coming, newer. And I always use an example like a Kim Kardashian, right? When you're negotiating with a Kim Kardashian or someone of that level, they're so exposed already in the world. Their image is everywhere, their name is everywhere, their voice is everywhere. They're so overexposed that there's not much more that can be leveraged from them than is already out in the world. Whereas people who are new to the industry, who are up and coming, who aren't as present, they're still trying to leverage their name, image, and likeness for profit and for their business and their career. That they really need to protect it much more. They really need to kind of like keep it safe, keep it secure,
Right.
and only let it be used in very specific pockets to make money and grow and grow their business. Whereas again, like the biggest celebrities are out there to such a degree that it just doesn't mean as much.
Right.
And so yeah, like if an AI tool is used for a massive celebrity, sure, like they'll be pretty pissed off because whether or not it's clear they agree to it or not.
Right.
Um,
But it's not going to hurt them the
it's
same
not
way.
going to hurt their career,
Right.
unless it's obviously used in some sort of nefarious way or something.
Right. Right.
But like for these people who are really trying to curate and cultivate their careers and their image and like who they are in the space, especially in entertainment, it's everything.
Right.
They need to protect that and not be overused, not be looped, not be overutilized in these usages.
I love that. And then I guess the second question I had, this sort of the oppressive force on pushing prices down
Yeah.
of everything with AI. What are your thoughts around that? And are you seeing anything in your space at this point?
I wouldn't say I'm seeing much in my space yet, because again, AI I feel like is used. AI right now is used a lot of times. It's ChatGPT for people to help themselves personally or professionally, whatever they're doing. For content creation, AI is still kind of used in niche ways. Commercials are using it now, brands are using it to create content, of course. But in terms of just content creation for creators and in that space, it's still, it's used as gag, as funny and things like that. It's not kind of crossed over yet into being used on the intellectual property side in a more meaningful way. But it's funny because you hear so often from like social content creators and influencers that are, have kind of made it that, the way to make it is just create content, just like
Right.
just shoot content, get it out in the world and just keep doing it. And eventually something's going to hit. That's the social creators. I've worked a lot with influencers and social creators, and the ones who are in the 1 to 2 million follower range across platforms will always kind of give that advice. Like they'll create content. It's like, how did I get here? How did I make it? And it's always just like, open your phone, make a TikTok and just keep doing it.
Right.
And AI is a helpful tool in that space to create content for individuals who don't have studios and don't have the ability to like heavily produce content and want to make something a little bit more than like a day in the life or a getting ready with me
Right.
kind of thing. So it's helpful in that way because it saves time, saves money, and for people who aren't like heavily embedded in editing tools and content in that way, it's a much easier way to kind of create content that's a little bit more ready to be outwardly facing to the world. But again, it's still so new. It's still so unclear on how
Right.
it's going to evolve in the space. Um, it's funny, the AI music thing is funny because I don't know why I have this memory, but I have a vivid memory from like it must be over a decade ago whenever that Carly Rae Jepsen song "Call Me Maybe" came out.
Oh,
You know the song.
classic. It's a classic.
Like shortly thereafter, I don't know how it was done at the time because AI didn't obviously exist, but there was a version that sounded exactly like Bob Dylan that circulated everywhere, and it was like massive, tons of views, and it was basically him singing the song "Call Me Maybe."
Right.
And I remember there were articles all over like, what does this mean? And it quickly died out because AI wasn't around yet, and I was like, oh, it's just like a gag. It's funny.
Maybe that was
It's
the
fun.
first AI that we didn't even
It
know.
might
It
have
was. It was.
it might have
It
been,
was our first attempt.
but you're right. And now like that's all you see.
Was there an impact from that? I mean, did Carly Rae Jepsen sue whoever that
No,
was? Or did,
no, it was just like because again at the time like no one knew what it was. It was just like a funny thing.
and
And
she was
it's
like, "This song's such a banger. I'm gonna live forever."
right. And this was this was pre TikTok. This was earlier days of Instagram,
Right.
earlier days of social media generally. So like things didn't just live on so significantly. It lived, it was on like, it was on these like Vine or these alternate
Sure.
platforms, and then it just died. But right now, like something like that is like a meaningful thing, and a question. It creates all these questions related
Of
to
what
rights
good.
because IP is everything now. So it's really interesting.
So I think that two last questions. How do people reach you? And who should be reaching out to you?
Sure.
And maybe even a third of when, right? So, hey, I'm about to make a brand film. I'm about to hire this video company. Should that be the person who's reaching out to you? Should video production companies that are responsible for this thing be reaching out to you? And where do they find you?
Yeah. So I would say there's three categories of client that we work with. There's media companies. In the media space now, media companies are, there's no secret that the media business is tightening its belt, I would say. And companies that would have large teams of lawyers and senior executive business affairs style individuals are shrinking. They're shrinking those teams, and they're looking for ways to kind of arbitrage those services
Sure.
outside of their company. And so for like big media companies who want the support of like a senior executive level business affairs person, that's something we can provide and basically give the in-house experience for a fraction of the cost. And basically it feels like you have someone on staff that you don't have to pay all the you don't have to pay salary, benefits, all that for,
Right.
but you get that experience. So that's one. For production companies, at all levels, that's probably our biggest client base. And again, it depends on the level and the size of the production company. Production companies that, they may have like one lawyer on staff who's like a generalist, who's not kind of specific in entertainment or anything like that, and just kind of knows contracts. They'll hire us to kind of work on the more niche, more specialized areas. Other production companies who just don't work with anyone will hire us to basically do all of that style of work, whether it's creating an entire portfolio of templates for them to use for anyone they're engaging or anyone engaging them, like really forward, precedent forward entertainment paperwork. It could be that. It could be negotiating the deals directly. It could be negotiating deals with brands for commercial content. It could be we do a lot of work providing music library and music clearance. It could be that style of service. So production companies is a big one. And then the last, I would say, is individual creators, talent, athletes, kind of individuals who want representation across entertainment and media. A lot of these individuals have agencies and PR firms and all of that work for them, but who's actually like negotiating their deals and ensuring that like the storytelling's there, the creative's there, kind of creating the image that they want and doing all the associated, back of house business and legal work. We're here to do that as well.
Love it.
So those are the three. And then you can reach us. It's info@astralmediagroup.com. That's the email. Astralmediagroup.com is our website. Find us on LinkedIn and Instagram. We're everywhere. We're pretty new. Before this, I was at Condé Nast for nearly a decade, leading the business affairs group across a number of entertainment mediums. And I wanted to kind of break out, create my own thing. I really recognized this was kind of a niche area that didn't exist. Because again, you either had someone in house or you hired a law firm.
Right.
And I wanted again, it's a funny thing to say as a lawyer, but I can't stand lawyers. I'm clearly not, as you probably can tell by now, I'm not a suit and tie kind of guy. And I'm a little bit more business forward. And so I wanted to create an opportunity for companies to hire someone that's a lawyer at their core, and that's the kind of what they know in and out, but also that's a little bit more business forward and wants to make cool content and make great deals and great partnerships.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on to Beyond the Frame. And I think that there was a lot of, it's a gray area. So I don't know that
Yeah.
we have like a pointed specific direction that do this, 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 and that for folks that are listening to this. But I think the big thing is it opens up a lot of opportunities for questions that are important to be asking when you're about to create content. Check out Astral Media, and thanks so much.
Thank you.